Lesson 3.2 is properties of parallel lines. So we talked about two lines being cut by a transversal, forming 8 different angles. Well, today we're going to see what happens when the two lines are parallel to each other. And if you notice here in the drawing, these little arrows right here that are on those two lines, that indicates that line L is parallel to line S. So, combining lesson 3.1 with 3.2, the corresponding angles, if we look at that, one pair of corresponding angles would be, say, angle 1 and angle 5. Those two angles correspond to each other. And if you take a look at that, you can see that those two angles are going to be congruent. 2 and 4, not 2 and 4, 2 and 6 are corresponding. They're going to be congruent to each other. 3 and 7 will be congruent to each other. 4 and 8 will be congruent to each other. So when you have two parallel lines cut by a transversal, all of your corresponding angle pairs will be congruent. So I'm going to list those again. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. Angle 2 is congruent to angle 6. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 7. And angle 4 will be congruent to angle 8. Okay, so now let's take a look at another set of angle combinations. Let me use the highlighter here. I think it'd be easier to do with highlighter color. Alright, so now we want to look at alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angle pairs would be 3 and 6 and 5 and 4. Okay, those angles are going to be congruent to each other as well. So angle 3 will be congruent to angle 6. Angle 4 will be congruent to angle 5. Alternate exterior. Your alternate exterior pairs would be 1 and 8, 2 and 7. Okay? So if you look at 1 and 8, both of those are obtuse. They're going to be congruent to each other. 2 and 7 will be congruent to each other. So, alternate exterior pairs will be congruent. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 8. Angle 2 will be congruent to angle 7. Same side interior. Our same side interior pairs would be 3 and 5, 4 and 6. Okay, so notice when you put those pairings together, 3 and 5, one of them is acute, one of them is obtuse. So they're not going to be congruent to each other. 4 and 6 are not going to be congruent to each other. Those angle pairings are going to be supplementary. And remember, supplementary means they have a sum of 180 degrees. So in this case, angle 3 plus the measure of angle 5 will equal 180. The measure of angle 4 plus the measure of angle 6 will equal 180. That's what it means to be supplementary. Vertical angles and linear pairs, those are both combinations that we talked about in Chapter 1. So I just wanted to repeat here things that we learned in Chapter 1. Vertical pairs are always going to be congruent, and linear pairs will always be supplementary. Again, those are things we talked about and that you tested over in Chapter 1. And so if we just look at the drawing up here, our vertical pair angles would be 1 and 4, 2 and 3. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 4. Angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. We've got grouping down here. We can do the same thing. Angle 5 is congruent to angle 8. And angle 6 is congruent to angle 7. That's just reviewing what we did in Chapter 1. A linear pair, we have a whole bunch of linear pairs here, but a couple of examples would be, remember, a linear pair is two angles next to each other that form a straight line. Say angle 1 and angle 3. Those would add up to 180 degrees. Another combination might be angle 5 and angle 6. Those two would add up to 180. Really, any combination of two side by side, angle 7 and angle 8, 180. Angle 6 and angle 8 will be 180 degrees. Alright, so let's just do some examples. It says, here's a picture. We've got two parallel lines because we have these little arrows on here. We know those lines are parallel. So we know that angle 5 is 70 degrees. Okay? So we know that this angle, if we measured it with a protractor, that's 70 degrees. Knowing that one angle, we can find all of the other angles in this picture. So angle 3 is right here. It is alternate interior to angle 5. So we know those two angles are going to be congruent. We know that's going to be a 70 degree angle. Okay, now it says justify by use of property. And I just said it when I was talking about it. It's alternate interior to angle 5. So they're going to be congruent. Okay, now angle 2 is this angle right here. Well, it's not going to be the same as angle 5, but it's going to be supplementary to angle 5 because it's a same side interior. So they're going to be supplementary. So you can just do 180 minus 70. So it's 110 degrees. Angle 8. Angle 8 is right next to angle 5. And so it's actually going to be a linear pair with angle 5. So again, it's going to be supplementary. And guess what? That means it's going to be 110 degrees also. And you can say that it is a linear pair with angle 5. You could also say that it's an alternate interior with angle 2. Angle 1. Angle 1 is corresponding to angle 5. Let me erase this. Angle 1 is right here. So it's going to be a corresponding to angle 5. Notice how I'm always using this angle 5 up here as my justification if I can. So it's also going to be 70 degrees because corresponding angles are congruent. Angle 4, I don't really have a relationship pair with angle 5, but I can say that it's a linear pair to angle 1. And linear pairs have to add up to 180, so I can do 180 minus 70 is 110. So I got angle 4 is 110, 1 is 70 degrees, we said that 2 was 110 degrees. Angle 6. Angle 6, you could say it's vertical to angle 8. There are really all sorts of different answers for the justification here. It's a vertical angle to angle 8. So if 8 is 110, we figured that out already. Angle 6 is 110 as well. So notice when we have this drawing, that we really have 8 angles, but we have 2 angle measurements. 4 of them are going to be acute angles. They are all going to be 70 degrees. That one's going to be 70 degrees. That one's going to be 70 degrees. And then all of the obtuse angles in this drawing measure 110. All right, now we're going to do another one. What are the measures of angle 3 and 4, and which property justifies each answer? All right, so we're given in the drawing that we have this angle right here is 105 degrees, okay? So we need to know, well, what's the relationship of angle 3 with that angle? Well, they would be alternate interior angles. So alternate interior angles are congruent. So if the angle 3 will also be 105 degrees. Angle 4 is this angle right here. It's an acute angle. It's not going to be 105 degrees, but it's a same side interior angle with 105, so it's going to be supplementary. So that means we have to do 180 minus 105, which will give us 75 degrees. Okay, and notice the important thing to remember on that is that works because we know that L is parallel to M because of these little arrows here, and we know that P is parallel to Q because of these double arrows on those two lines. All right, I'm going to pause this video and then record part 2.